You sit in the dark, the blue glow of your screen illuminating your face. As fingers dance across a keyboard, the rhythmic clicking masks a sinister truth. Someone is watching, waiting to breach your digital fortress. They're out there, invisible predators, hunting in the shadows of cyberspace, stealing your data while you sleep soundly. Their weapons aren't guns or knives, but lines of code that slip past firewalls, like ghosts through walls. A notification appears. Your bank account shows transactions you never made. Your identity now belongs to someone else. The violation feels physical, intimate. A stranger has walked through your digital home, touching everything you own. For an individual, a hack feels like a home invasion, where nothing is visibly disturbed, yet everything feels contaminated. Your most private conversations, photos, and financial details now exist in someone else's possession, creating a persistent sense of violation. At a corporate level, executives wait to find their company's name splashed across headlines, stock prices plummeting as customer data appears for sale on dark web forums. The breach becomes an existential threat to the business itself. For nations, the discovery of foreign actors inside critical infrastructure networks triggers crisis meetings in secure government facilities. Military OPSUBs are discussed for what is essentially invisible aggression that leaves no physical evidence. In 2023 alone, cybercrime cost the world over $8 trillion, a number so saft it exceeds the GDP of most countries. Behind these attacks are individuals with extraordinary skills, operating from anonymous locations across the globe. This figure represents not just stolen funds, but lost productivity, recovery costs, and damaged reputations, a hidden tax on global prosperity that grows each year. By 2025, experts predict these costs will reach $10.5 trillion annually. The average data breach now costs companies $4.45 million, with healthcare and financial sectors facing even higher costs due to regulatory penalties and customer compensation. These numbers represent real human impact. Jobs lost, services disrupted, trust eroded. Some work alone in darkened rooms. Others serve powerful governments that deny their existence with practiced ease. Their fingers are on everything: your social media, banking systems, power grids, and election results. The journey from curious exploration to weaponized code spans just 4 decades, beginning with phone phreakers who manipulated tone frequencies to make free calls. Their playful hacks bore little resemblance to today's sophisticated cyber operations. The 1980s saw the emergence of hacker culture, where technical prowess earned respect in underground communities like the Legion of Doom and Masters of Deception. Their motivations centered on knowledge sharing and boundary testing rather than financial gain. By the late 1990s, criminal enterprises recognized the profit potential in digital theft, transforming hacking from a subculture into an industry. Organized crime groups recruited technical talent to steal financial data at unprecedented scale. The early 2000s marked the militarization of cyberspace as nations built specialized units within their intelligence and military structures. What began as espionage evolved into capabilities that could disable critical infrastructure with a keystroke. Tonight, we pull back the digital curtain on the most dangerous hackers ever known and the relentless hunters who pursued them. This isn't just about computers. It's about power, national security, and the invisible war for control. Kevin Mitnick, whose social engineering skills made him the FBI's most wanted hacker, demonstrated how human trust could be exploited more easily than technical systems. His story reveals how curiosity without ethics can lead to criminal consequences. Albert Gonzalez turned his technical brilliance toward massive financial theft, while simultaneously working as a government informant. His double life exemplifies the thin line between poacher and gamekeeper in the digital wilderness. Anonymous emerged as a collective without leaders or structure, challenging traditional concepts of how threats organize and operate. Their hacktivist campaigns demonstrated how ideology could motivate digital attacks as effectively as financial gain. Russia's Fancy Bear brought state resources and military discipline to cyber operations, targeting democratic institutions and critical infrastructure worldwide. Their campaigns reveal how geopolitical conflicts now play out in code, rather than on battlefields. Traditional security approaches fail against these sophisticated threats because they focus on building higher walls rather than understanding the human element. The most devastating breaches often begin with a single click on a convincing email. Firewalls, antivirus software, and encryption provide necessary protection, but create a false sense of security when deployed without addressing the psychological aspects of digital defense. Technical solutions cannot compensate for human vulnerability. The psychological impact of digital violations often exceeds their practical consequences, creating lasting trauma that changes how victims interact with technology. The knowledge that strangers have accessed intimate details of your life fundamentally alters your relationship with digital tools. Your smartphone contains more personal information than your wallet, house, and filing cabinet combined, creating an unprecedented attack surface for those seeking to exploit your data. Each app, each connection, each sensor represents a potential entry point. Smart homes filled with connected devices create convenience while simultaneously expanding vulnerability. Your thermostat, doorbell, and refrigerator now offer pathways into your digital life. The average household contains dozens of potential breach points. The invisible nature of cyber threats makes them particularly insidious. Unlike physical dangers that trigger instinctive responses, digital predators exploit systems designed to be seamless and frictionless. You cannot see, hear, or smell the danger until it's too late. This invisibility extends to the aftermath, where victims often struggle to understand what was taken, how it will be used, and whether the threat has truly been eliminated. The uncertainty creates a persistent anxiety that physical crimes rarely match. The most terrifying truth isn't what they've already stolen, but what they're planning next. As we speak, every keystroke brings them closer to their next target, their next victim, their next conquest. 5 individuals changed the landscape of digital security forever, their names whispered in both fear and awe. They didn't just break into systems, they shattered our illusions of safety in the digital age. Kevin Mitnick, Albert Gonzalez, Anonymous, Fancy Bear, and Sandworm, names that represent the evolution of hacking from curiosity to criminality to warfare. Their exploits cost billions, compromised millions, and rewrote the rules of global security. These aren't just technical crimes committed by socially awkward teenagers in basements, as Hollywood portrays. They represent sophisticated operations targeting the foundations of modern society, our financial systems, democratic processes, and critical infrastructure. The damage extends beyond stolen credit cards or embarrassing emails. It reaches into the fabric of trust that holds our digital world together. When that trust fractures, so does our willingness to embrace the technologies that define modern life. The hunters tracking these predators operate in a perpetual state of disadvantage, always one step behind. By the time they discover a breach, the damage is often already done, the digital fingerprints fading. What makes these hackers truly dangerous isn't just their technical prowess, but their ability to understand human psychology. They exploit our trust, our curiosity, our fear, turning our own humanity against us. The stakes couldn't be higher. National security, economic stability, and personal privacy hang in the balance of this invisible war. Don't just watch passively. Engage with this critical information that affects us all. Subscribe now to follow the full journey of these digital predators and the determined hunters who risked everything to bring them to justice. Their stories reveal vulnerabilities, not just in our systems, but in ourselves. You're 16 years old in 1979, sitting before a glowing terminal, heart pounding, as you breach Digital Equipment Corporation's network with a few keystrokes. This is Kevin Mitnick's first major hack, the moment that would set him on a collision course with the FBI.
Well, I kind of characterize myself as a little bit of having a similar story like the Frank Abagnale Catch Me If You Can. Is when I was younger, I was really fascinated with telephones, computers, and magic, and I became a hacker.
Born in Los Angeles to a single mother, Mitnick discovered his uncanny ability to manipulate both systems and people at an early age. His first hack wasn't digital at all. He social engineered bus drivers to tell him where to buy ticket punches for a school project. By 12, he was riding buses freely throughout Los Angeles, using discarded transfer slips he found in dumpsters behind the bus company. The pattern was established early. Mitnick saw rules as suggestions and security systems as puzzles waiting to be solved. His technical skills grew alongside his confidence, leading him to hack into NORAD in 1982, an achievement that reportedly inspired the 1983 film War Games. The line between fiction and reality blurred as Mitnick became a living legend in early hacker circles. Unlike many who would follow, Mitnick's motivation wasn't financial gain or political ideology, but pure curiosity and an intoxicating thrill of access. He never sold the proprietary software he stole or damaged the systems he penetrated. His first conviction came in 1988 for stealing software from DEC, resulting in 12 months in prison, followed by supervised release. The punishment did nothing to deter him. Upon release, he immediately hacked Pacific Bell's voicemail systems. A warrant for his arrest sent Mitnick underground, beginning a 2.5-year game of cat and mouse with federal authorities. He became a digital phantom, using cloned cellular phones to mask his location, while continuing to breach major corporations. The FBI's pursuit intensified as Mitnick's reputation grew, his name becoming synonymous with the emerging threat of computer crime. His ability to evade capture, despite being the most wanted hacker in America, only enhanced his mythical status. On February 15, 1995, the chase ended when FBI agents arrested Mitnick in his Raleigh, North Carolina apartment after an extensive manhunt. They found him with cloned phones, cellular codes, and multiple pieces of false identification. The charges were substantial: 14 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of possession of unauthorized access devices, interception of communications, and causing damage to a federal computer. His case would become a flashpoint in the debate over cybercrime punishment. Mitnick's imprisonment sparked controversy, with supporters arguing his punishment was excessive compared to the actual harm caused. They distributed free Kevin bumper stickers and portrayed him as a victim of government overreach. The most outrageous claim, that officials convinced a Judge Mitnick could start a nuclear war by whistling into a payphone, highlighted the technical ignorance that often characterized early cybercrime prosecutions. His supporters maintained many charges were fraudulent. He served 5 years in prison, including 8 months in solitary confinement, under conditions his advocates considered cruel and unusual. Upon release in 2000, he faced severe restrictions on his use of technology. The transformation that followed his release represents one of the most remarkable second acts in the history of cybercrime. Mitnick reinvented himself as a security consultant, public speaker, and author. His company, Mitnick Security Consulting, provided penetration testing services to the very types of corporations he once breached. The former outlaw became a respected insider, teaching companies how to protect themselves from people like his former self. Mitnick's books, including The Art of Deception and Ghost in the Wires, became essential reading in security circles, transforming his hard-won knowledge into protection for others. His redemption story inspired many in the security community. His techniques, particularly social engineering, remain relevant decades later, proving that the human element remains the weakest link in security systems. Modern phishing attacks follow the blueprint Mitnick established in the 1980s and 1990s. Kevin Mitnick died on July 16, 2023, from pancreatic cancer at age 59, leaving behind a complex legacy that spans both sides of the security divide. His journey from America's most wanted hacker to respected security consultant embodied the industry's maturation. You stand in a Miami high school computer lab in the late 1990s, watching a teenager command respect from older students with his uncanny ability to manipulate systems. This is Albert Gonzalez, the troubled pack leader of computer nerds, who would orchestrate the largest data breaches in history. Unlike Mitnick's curiosity-driven exploits, Gonzalez's path was fueled by a darker ambition: financial gain and status in the criminal underground. His journey began on shadowcrew.com, a notorious marketplace for stolen credit cards and identity theft. By his early 20s, Gonzalez had risen to become one of Shadowcrew's best hackers and moderators, gaining a reputation for technical brilliance and ruthless efficiency. His handle Soup Nazi became feared and respected in criminal circles worldwide. His first arrest came at age 22 for debit card fraud related to millions of stolen accounts, a moment that should have ended his criminal career. Instead, it marked the beginning of an extraordinary double life that would shock even seasoned investigators. Facing jail time, Gonzalez made a deal to become a paid informant for the Secret Service, helping them identify and indict dozens of shadow crew members. Operation Firewall, as it was called, was considered a major victory against cybercrime. What his handlers didn't realize was that Gonzalez was simultaneously planning even larger heists while working under their protection. His position as an informant gave him unique insights into law enforcement techniques and blind spots. He assembled a team of skilled hackers, including 2 Eastern European programmers, who would help execute his ambitious plans. Together, they identified vulnerabilities in major retail payment systems that processed millions of transactions daily. Their method was deceptively simple, yet devastatingly effective. Word driving, the practice of cruising in a car with a laptop and antenna, looking for unsecured wireless networks. Retail stores became their hunting grounds, their parking lots, staging areas for digital heists. In 2005, Gonzalez launched his most audacious attack on TJX Companies, parent of TJ Maxx and Marshalls, using a basic SQL injection to create backdoors in their corporate networks. The breach would remain undetected for 18 months. During this time, Gonzalez and his team stole data from an estimated 45.7 million payment cards, a number so vast it was difficult to comprehend. The true scale wouldn't be known until years later when investigators pieced together the full extent of his operations. His success fueled both his ambition and his lifestyle. He threw a $75,000 birthday party for himself, stayed in lavish hotel suites, and amassed a collection of luxury items, all while still meeting regularly with his Secret Service handlers. The operation expanded to target additional companies, including OfficeMax, Boston Market, Barnes & Noble, Sports Authority, and Dave & Buster's. Each successful breach added millions more card numbers to their haul. Their technical approach evolved with each attack, becoming more sophisticated and harder to detect. They installed custom sniffer programs that captured card data as it moved through internal networks before encryption could be applied. The stolen data was sold through underground forums, generating millions in revenue that Gonzalez partially buried. Investigators would later find 1.1 million in cash, wrapped in plastic and buried in a barrel in his parents' backyard. The scheme began to unravel in 2008, when investigators noticed patterns in a series of seemingly unrelated breaches across different companies. The common thread led back to Gonzalez and his team, though initially his status as an informant complicated matters. His arrest shocked his Secret Service handlers, who had no idea their prized informant was simultaneously orchestrating the very type of crimes they were fighting. The betrayal was complete and devastating to those who had trusted him. The scale of his crimes became clear as the investigation progressed. More than 18 million payment card accounts, compromised across multiple companies, with estimated damages exceeding $256 million from TJX alone. It was unprecedented in both scope and impact. During his sentencing in 2015, the federal prosecutor called Gonzalez's human victimization unparalleled in the history of computer crime. The judge agreed, sentencing him to 20 years in federal prison, the longest sentence ever imposed for hacking crimes at that time. The TJX breach fundamentally changed how companies approach payment card security, leading to industry-wide reforms and the accelerated adoption of chip-based cards in the United States. Gonzalez's crimes cost billions, but ultimately strengthened the financial ecosystem. His case highlighted a disturbing truth, that technical brilliance without ethical boundaries represents one of the greatest threats to our interconnected world. The skills that made Gonzalez valuable to law enforcement made him exponentially more dangerous when turned against society. Today, Gonzalez remains in federal prison, his release not scheduled until 2025. A cautionary tale of talent corrupted and trust betrayed. His legacy lives on in the security measures his crimes made necessary. The most chilling aspect of Gonzalez's story isn't what he stole, but how easily he moved between worlds. Trusted government asset by day, mastermind of historic data breaches by night. The duality reveals how difficult it is to truly know who controls our digital lives. You're scrolling through 4chan in 2003, witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, a formless digital entity emerging from the chaos of anonymous message boards. Unlike individual hackers, this collective has no leader, no headquarters, and no fixed membership. Anonymous began not as a hacking group, but as a concept. The idea that individuals acting together without revealing their identities could wield significant power. Their early activities were chaotic and often juvenile, reflecting the anarchic culture of their birthplace. The transformation from internet pranksters to hacktivist force began in 2008 with Project Chinology, their campaign against the Church of Scientology. The catalyst was the church's attempt to remove an embarrassing Tom Cruise interview from the internet. Anonymous saw this as censorship and declared war with a now famous video statement. "We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us." The dramatic rhetoric established their theatrical approach to activism. Their protests moved from digital to physical, as thousands of anonymous supporters marched outside Scientology centers worldwide, wearing Guy Fawkes masks, inspired by the film V for Vendetta. The mask became their symbol, a face that belonged to everyone and no one. What made Anonymous truly dangerous wasn't technical sophistication, but their unpredictability and distributed nature. Traditional security measures, designed to stop individual hackers, proved ineffective against a constantly shifting collective with no clear structure. Their targets expanded beyond Scientology to include governments, corporations, and organizations they deemed corrupt or oppressive. Operation Payback targeted financial institutions that blocked donations to WikiLeaks, demonstrating their growing political focus. Their primary weapon became the distributed denial of service attack, DDoS, overwhelming websites with traffic until they crashed. Though relatively simple technically, these attacks proved effective at drawing attention to their causes. The Arab Spring uprisings of 2010-2012 saw Anonymous provide technical support to protesters, helping them circumvent government internet censorship in Tunisia and Egypt. Their involvement demonstrated how hacktivist groups could influence geopolitical events. Operation Anti-Sec targeted law enforcement agencies, resulting in the theft and publication of sensitive data from police departments across the United States. The escalation marked a turning point in how authorities viewed the threat posed by the collective. The FBI and other agencies began aggressively investigating Anonymous, but their structure, or lack thereof, presented unique challenges. How do you infiltrate a group with no membership requirements, no leadership hierarchy, and no formal meetings? The breakthrough came with Hector Xavier Monsegur, known online as Sabu, a prominent anonymous member and founder of the splinter group LulzSec. His arrest in June 2011 remained secret, as he agreed to become an informant. For months, Sabu continued his online activities under FBI supervision, gathering evidence against other hackers, while maintaining his status within the community. His betrayal would ultimately lead to the arrests of several key anonymous members. The most significant was Jeremy Hammond, who worked with Sabu on hacking intelligence firm Stratfor, resulting in the theft of millions of emails and credit card information. Hammond received a 10-year sentence, while Sabu received time served for his cooperation. The arrests dealt a significant blow to Anonymous, creating paranoia within the collective about who might be working with authorities. Activity decreased as members questioned whether they could trust their digital comrades. Yet the decentralized nature of Anonymous meant it couldn't be destroyed entirely. It evolved, fragmented, and continued in various forms. Operations became smaller, more focused, and often regional rather than global. The legacy of Anonymous extends beyond their hacks to the model they created, a blueprint for leaderless digital resistance that has inspired countless other movements. Their structure proved remarkably resilient against traditional law enforcement approaches. Their influence on popular culture has been equally significant, with the Guy Fawkes mask becoming a universal symbol of protest adopted by movements with no connection to Anonymous itself. They transformed hacking from a solitary crime to a form of collective action. The ethical complexity of Anonymous defies simple categorization. They've exposed corruption and supported democratic movements, while also engaging in clearly criminal activity. Their moral ambiguity reflects the gray areas of digital ethics in the modern age. Today, Anonymous continues to exist in various forms, occasionally emerging for specific causes before fading back into the digital landscape. Their operations against ISIS, support for the Black Lives Matter movement, and actions during the Russia-Ukraine conflict demonstrate their continued relevance. The most profound danger Anonymous represented wasn't to specific targets, but to the very concept of centralized authority in the digital age. They proved that power could be wielded effectively without traditional organizational structures. Sharing this knowledge could help raise awareness about the evolving nature of digital threats. Don't keep this information to yourself when understanding these groups is crucial for digital citizenship. Their story reveals how the internet has fundamentally changed the dynamics of power. You're sitting in the German Bundestag on May 8, 2015, when your computer suddenly behaves strangely. The accent marks don't work properly. This seemingly minor technical glitch marks the beginning of one of the most sophisticated state-sponsored hacking operations in history. Behind this attack is a group known as Fancy Bear, APT-28, a unit of Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU, operating from a facility in Moscow nicknamed the Aquarium. Unlike criminal hackers, their objectives extend beyond financial gain to geopolitical advantage. The Bundestag attack began with a simple phishing email that appeared to come from the United Nations, referencing Ukraine's economic situation, a topic of intense interest following Russia's annexation of Crimea. One click was all it took to install malware silently. The hackers moved laterally through the network, eventually gaining administrator rights, the digital equivalent of master keys. They penetrated areas that should have been completely secure, including the parliamentary office of Chancellor Angela Merkel. Despite early warnings from a British cybersecurity firm that had detected suspicious connections to the Bundestag network, German Geragris delayed the response. By the time authorities realized what was happening, the hackers had been inside for weeks. The attack resulted in the theft of approximately 16 gigabytes of data, including emails from Merkel's office. German authorities eventually shut down the entire network, but the damage was done. The digital heart of German democracy had been compromised. This breach represented more than just stolen data. It was a direct challenge to German digital sovereignty, erasing corners that once seemed impenetrable. National boundaries mean little on the digital battlefield, where attackers strike from thousands of miles away. The weaponized code deployed against the Bundestag carried Russia's strategic fingerprints while maintaining plausible deniability, a hallmark of modern cyber operations. This duality creates a gray zone between peace and conflict that international law struggles to address. While German officials were still assessing the Bundestag breach, Fancy Bear was already preparing their next operation, one that would shake the foundations of American democracy. Their target, the 2016 U.S. presidential election. On March 19, 2016, John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, received a phishing email disguised as a Google security alert. After an IT staffer mistakenly identified it as legitimate, Podesta entered his credentials on a fake site. This single mistake gave Fancy Bear access to 50,000 of Podesta's emails, providing precedent insight into the Clinton campaign's internal communications. The hackers targeted an additional 300 individuals associated with the Democratic Party. Using similar techniques, they breached the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, and subsequently the Democratic National Committee, DNC, stealing documents on campaign strategy and opposition research on Donald Trump. What distinguished Fancy Bear from criminal hackers was what came next, the strategic weaponization of the stolen information. They created the persona Guccifer 2.0. The timing of the releases was calculated for maximum political impact, with new damaging information appearing at crucial moments in the campaign. The constant drip of leaks created a lasting impression of impropriety within the Democratic Party. Democracy's digital vulnerabilities were laid bare as foreign actors manipulated the information environment surrounding a sovereign election. The attacks targeted not just computer systems, but the cognitive infrastructure of American voters. The operation was supported by Russia's Internet Research Agency, which flooded social media with polarizing content and even organized real-life protests across multiple U.S. cities. The coordination demonstrated the sophisticated integration of hacking with broader influence operation. This asymmetric warfare strategy allowed Russia to project power far beyond what its conventional military capabilities would permit. For the cost of maintaining a cyber unit, they influenced the trajectory of the world's most powerful nation. Behind computer screens in Moscow, young military officers wielded influence disproportionate to their rank or number, demonstrating how digital tools have fundamentally altered the balance of global power. Their keyboards proved mightier than aircraft carriers. US intelligence agencies eventually concluded that Russia had interfered in the election, with the explicit goal of harming Hillary Clinton's candidacy and helping Donald Trump. The assessment represented an unprecedented acknowledgement of foreign cyber interference and American democracy. The technical sophistication of Fancy Bear's operations revealed years of preparation and significant resources that only a state actor could provide. Their malware, including X-Agent and X-Tunnel, represented some of the most advanced cyber weapons ever deployed. Attribution challenges plagued investigators despite mounting evidence, pointing to Russia's involvement. Digital forensics revealed Russian language settings in the malware code and operations that aligned with Moscow working hours. Yet these technical breadcrumbs could theoretically be planted as false flags, creating just enough uncertainty for Russian officials to maintain denials. The line between espionage and warfare blurred as traditional concepts of attack and defense became inadequate. In 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted 12 GRU officers for their roles in the election interference, naming specific individuals and detailing their actions. The indictments included Dmitry Badin, the hacker believed to have breached Merkel's computer. Badin, known online as Scaramouche, was just 27 years old when he breached the German chancellor's computer, a young man whose digital exploits would eventually trigger international arrest warrants. His personal life offers glimpses of the human behind the code. Investigators discovered Badin lives in a town south of Moscow, is married with a daughter, and listens to Russian rock and techno while working. He's a football enthusiast who streams matches during hacking operations and admires Cristiano Ronaldo. These mundane details create a jarring contrast with his role in operations that threaten democratic institutions across multiple continents. The banality of his personal life underscores how ordinary people can become extraordinary threats when directed by state powers. The German federal prosecutor later filed charges against Badin as well, marking a significant escalation in how democracies respond to state-sponsored cyber attacks. The criminal charges against individual officers sent a clear message about accountability. Despite these indictments, the officers remain in Russia, protected by a government that denies any involvement in the attacks. When confronted with the allegations in an NBC interview, Vladimir Putin responded, "I don't care, I couldn't care less." This dismissive response highlights the limitations of traditional legal remedies in addressing state-sponsored cyber operations. When pretemptors enjoy the protection of a nuclear power, arrest warrants become largely symbolic gestures. As defensive measures improved, Fancy Bear's tactics evolved accordingly, demonstrating the perpetual cat-and-mouse game that defines cybersecurity. Their spear-phishing emails became more convincing, their malware more difficult to detect. In April 2018, Dutch authorities caught 4 GRU officers attempting to hack the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons from a car parked near its headquarters. This physical proximity operation revealed how cyber units adapt when remote access proves difficult. The team carried specialized equipment, including a hidden Wi-Fi panel antenna designed to mimic the OPCW's network and intercept credentials. Their capture provided rare physical evidence linking Russia directly to a cyber operation. The Dutch Military Intelligence Service had been tracking the team from the moment they entered the country, demonstrating that even sophisticated operators make mistakes. A taxi receipt found in one officer's possession showed a pickup location at GRU headquarters. This operational security failure humanized the threat, revealing that even elite hackers are fallible human beings working within bureaucratic constraints. They aren't mythical figures, but government employees with deadlines, bosses, and paperwork. In 2020, Fancy Bear targeted organizations involved in COVID-19 vaccine development, showing how their focus shifts to align with Russia's strategic priorities. The pandemic created new vulnerabilities as healthcare systems became critical infrastructure overnight. Their techniques continue to evolve, incorporating supply chain attacks that compromise software vendors to gain access to their customers. This approach allowed them to breach numerous US government agencies through the SolarWinds hack attributed to Russia. The SolarWinds operation demonstrated a frightening level of patience and sophistication. The attackers waited months before activating their backdoors, ensuring deep penetration before beginning actual espionage. This strategic restraint marks the maturation of state cyber operations. Fancy Bear's operations continue today, targeting government agencies, think tanks, and critical infrastructure worldwide. Their techniques have evolved, but their objectives remain consistent to advance Russian strategic interests through cyber means. The most alarming aspect of state-sponsored groups like Fancy Bear isn't just their technical capabilities, but the resources and legal protection they enjoy. Unlike criminal hackers who fear arrest, these operators act with the full backing of a nuclear power. Their operations have fundamentally altered international relations, creating a new domain of competition where traditional concepts of sovereignty, warfare, and peace no longer apply. Nations now maintain constant digital border patrols against invisible invaders. The militarization of cyberspace represents one of the most significant security developments of the 21st century, with major powers building digital arsenals capable of disrupting societies without firing a single conventional weapon. This transformation has only just begun. As we move deeper into an era where critical infrastructure, democratic processes, and daily life depend on connected systems, the power wielded by groups like Fancy Bear will only grow. Their keyboards have become the artillery of a new kind of conflict. The ultimate defense against these threats may require reimagining the internet itself, building resilience and security into its fundamental architecture rather than adding it as an afterthought. Until then, the digital battlefield remains tilted in favor of the attackers. You wake to news that your city's power grid has failed, hospitals are running on emergency generators, and water treatment plants are offline. This isn't science fiction, it's the emerging reality of cyber warfare targeting critical infrastructure. The evolution of hacking from individual curiosity to organized crime to state-sponsored warfare represents one of the most significant security challenges of the 21st century. The battlefield has expanded beyond computers to include everything connected to a network. In 2015 and 2016, Russian hackers demonstrated this capability by temporarily disabling parts of Ukraine's power grid, plunging portions of the country into darkness. The attack served as both a warning and a test of capabilities that could be deployed elsewhere. The 2017 Notorious malware, initially targeted at Ukraine, but quickly spreading globally, caused over $10 billion in damages to companies worldwide. What appeared to be ransomware was actually a destructive weapon designed to render systems permanently inoperable. Critical infrastructure, power grids, water systems, transportation networks, and healthcare facilities represents the most concerning frontier in cyber warfare. These systems were often built before cybersecurity was a consideration and retrofitted inadequately. The Internet of Things, IoT, has exponentially expanded the attack surface, with billions of connected devices offering potential entry points into networks. Many of these devices lack basic security features, creating vulnerabilities throughout the ecosystem. Artificial intelligence is transforming both offensive and defensive capabilities in cyberspace, enabling attacks that can adapt to defenses in real time. AI-powered defensive systems can detect anomalies and respond to threats faster than human analysts. The commercialization of hacking tools has lowered barriers to entry, allowing less sophisticated actors to deploy advanced techniques. Ransomware as a service platforms enable criminals with minimal technical skills to conduct devastating attacks for a share of the profits. Nation-states increasingly blur the lines between military and civilian targets, viewing economic disruption as a legitimate strategy in ongoing geopolitical competition. Critical private sector companies now find themselves on the front lines of international conflicts. The concept of hybrid warfare, combining conventional military operations with cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and economic pressure, has become the dominant model for conflict between major powers. Traditional deterrence concepts struggle to address these multifaceted threats. Attribution remains one of the greatest challenges in responding to cyber attacks, with sophisticated actors using false flags and Ruxies groups to maintain plausible deniability. This uncertainty complicates diplomatic and military responses to major incidents. International norms for behavior in cyberspace are still developing, with major powers disagreeing on fundamental concepts like what constitutes an act of war in the digital domain. The absence of clear rules increases the risk of miscalculation and unintended escalation. For ordinary citizens, protection begins with basic digital hygiene, strong, unique passwords for each account, two-factor authentication, regular software updates, and skepticism toward unexpected emails or messages. These simple steps significantly reduce vulnerability to common attacks. Organizations must adopt a zero-trust security model that verifies every user and device attempting to access resources, regardless of location. The assumption that threats exist both outside and inside the network perimeter represents a fundamental shift in security thinking. Public-private partnerships have become essential as governments recognize that much critical infrastructure is privately owned and operated. Information racing between sectors helps identify threats before they can cause widespread damage. International cooperation in fighting cybercrime has improved, with law enforcement agencies working across borders to dismantle criminal networks. Operations against groups like Emotet and Rival demonstrate the effectiveness of coordinated global action. The militarization of cyberspace continues to accelerate, with major powers investing heavily in both offensive and defensive capabilities. The United States Cyber Command, China's Strategic Support Force, and Russia's various cyber units represent just the visible portion of these efforts. Like this video, if you feel this information has helped you understand the evolving threat landscape, consider subscribing if this story of digital conflict resonates with your concerns about our connected future. The knowledge you gain today could protect you tomorrow. You've now witnessed the evolution of hacking, from the curious explorations of Kevin Mitnick to the state-sponsored operations of Fancy Bear. The progression reveals a disturbing truth about our digital age. What began as technical curiosity transformed into criminal enterprise, then into weapons of geopolitical warfare with the power to disrupt democracies and disable critical infrastructure. The stakes have never been higher for our connected world. The hunters, cybersecurity professionals, law enforcement agencies, and intelligence services continue their relentless pursuit, developing new tools and techniques to counter evolving threats. Their work largely happens in the shadows, unrecognized until a major breach occurs. For every hacker caught, countless others operate freely, probing our defenses and exploiting vulnerabilities we don't yet recognize. The asymmetry of cyber conflict favors the attacker, who needs to find just one weakness, while defenders must protect everything. The most dangerous hackers aren't necessarily those with the greatest technical skills, but those with the backing of nation-states or criminal organizations that provide resources, protection, and direction. Individual brilliance amplified by institutional support creates truly formidable threats. As our dependence on digital systems deepens, so too does our vulnerability to those who would exploit them for profit or power. The integration of technology into every aspect of modern life has created attack surfaces that were unimaginable just decades ago. The future of this digital battlefield will be shaped by artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and technologies we cannot yet envision. Each advance brings new capabilities for both attack and defense in an endless cycle of measure and countermeasure. Our greatest protection may ultimately lie not in technology, but in human vigilance. The awareness that behind every suspicious email, every unusual system behavior, every unexpected request might lurk one of the digital predators we've examined in this documentary.